Hey, welcome back to the ZT Audio channel. Today, once again, taking a look at the new Roland Fantom. The title of the video is going to be Supernatural Secrets, and this will be part one. There will be at least a part two, maybe a part three. I started trying to do this all as one video because I thought I could cover it all at once, and there's no freaking way. There's too much to go into with Supernatural, and that's part of the reason why I'm calling this Supernatural Secrets, because when Roland sort of introduced operating system 1.50, they kind of threw Supernatural acoustic in there, and they said, I got Supernatural brass and I got Supernatural strings, and that's about all they told you about it. And there's a lot more to show about Supernatural than just brass and strings. And so it's going to take a couple of videos to go through this. I'm not sure how quickly I'll be releasing these, but these will be released in order. I won't do something in the middle of releasing these videos that'll kind of confuse the situation. I am trying out a new camera today, and I always try to zoom into the part of the instrument that I think is the most useful. So a couple of things will be off screen, like, pitch bend and modulation wheels. You've seen me do the old pointing finger thing before, so I'll try to call it out when I'm using a control like that. Also, I always like to start from some place where we all know we're on the same page. So literally, turning to page the D's, and going with D13, I'm using an initialized scene, and I'm going to go into single tone mode. Single tone mode, not single zone play, but single tone mode will automatically take you over to zone 1, which you can't see off the screen here. And I'm going to turn down all the other faders. So just know that over here, zone 1 is turned all the way up, just like I turned zone 8 up here. I'm going to turn zone 1 all the way up over here so that we can hear it. And right now, it's just, a Z core piano is what comes up by default, I guess, in one of these zones. Okay, so getting right into it. Roland announced operating system 1.50. One of the things that's in that operating system update are supernatural acoustic sounds. Number of people mentioned that, like, they didn't include supernatural synth sounds like they had on the Integra and the FA. Real quickly, I think there's no reason for Roland to do that. If they do that, eventually, I think it'll be just to stop people complaining. But frankly, I don't think there's any need to do that, because everything that you could do with Supernatural Synth, you can already do it better with the VA and PCM engines that are built into the Fantom. As a matter of fact, you can do a lot more with those engines in terms of synthesizer sounds than you could ever do with Supernatural Synth. Supernatural Synth was kind of hobbled a little bit, in my opinion. There were a lot of things in the way of modulation routings that you just couldn't do with Supernatural Synth that you can now do with the VA engine that's in the Fantom. So no need for Supernatural Synth. That's kind of like Supernatural Synth. That's like Supernatural Secret number 1. We don't need Supernatural Synth on the Fantom, because you've already got a great VA and PCM engine that does a much better job of all of those same things. Okay, moving on. They announced it and they said we've got strings and we've got brass. And sure enough, if we click up strings, we'll notice that it's saying we've got supernatural sounds. You can see those because they say SN in the middle of them if we cursor over and highlight that. Also, if you sort of drill down into the list of sounds in any given section, you'll see a number of supernatural sounds listed. And these are, if you haven't counted them, there's 20 sounds per page, or tones as Roland calls them, and we've got 10 supernatural orchestral and ensemble, I should say, sounds in the string section. In the orchestral section, we've only got Z core PCM based sounds, it looks like. And we've also got 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 solo string sounds. Those are partly not named right, and I'll get into that either in this video or maybe in the next one. If you go over to brass, you'll say, wait a minute, I thought there were supernatural brass sounds. There doesn't seem to be any in ensemble section. These are all Z-core PCM-based sounds. Same thing for synth brass, since we don't have supernatural synth in here. These are all either VA-based sounds or PCM-based sounds, and honestly, they sound gorgeous. There's no need for supernatural synth. In the brass section, all of the supernatural sounds are in the solo section. And again, this is somewhat misnamed, and I'll get into the reason why that's the case, maybe later in this video or in the very next video on this topic. But here off the bat, we've got a little bit of an issue because Roland, and this is the first secret, Roland said, oh, we're giving you SuperNatural acoustic brass and string sounds. But there's more to it than that. And to show you how that works, let's just start going category by category. And I'm going to go into, drill down into acoustic piano. We've got V piano here. There's no SuperNatural piano there. We've got pop piano, which are more pianos, all of them PCM based. And we've got electric grand piano. All of them are PCM based. And if you've loaded up all 15 of the current EXZ packs, you've also got a stage grand in here. And if you get into some of these other things, you've also got some EXZ based things. But no SuperNatural stuff there. No SuperNatural E-pianos either. You can go all the way through here and you won't find any. They will all be PCM based. There could be a case for Roland coming out with a V-piano engine or a SuperNatural E-piano EPs. We'll see in the future whether they do that. In the organ department, these are all PCM based organ sounds. A lot of people want a modeled organ. We may see one in the future. But where we first start to see sort of Roland's announcement not really be complete is in the keys section. So if I hit the keys section, I'll see in harpsichord, clavinets, celesta, accordion, harmonica, bell, and mallet, all I've got still are Zencore-based PCM sounds. However, when I go into plucked and stroked, all of a sudden I'll notice, wait a minute, these say SN in front of them. I've got a SuperNatural harp. I've got lots of harp sounds here. What's going on? And then finally it'll start going into other categories. But let's exit back out of that and let's go back into the keys section. And I've got a harp. And this is in fact a SuperNatural harp section, which includes those SuperNatural articulations that I'll show off probably in the next video. So right off the bat, SuperNatural acoustic secrets. Apparently it's a secret that you've got a plucked stroke section because Roland didn't announce that. Moving on to guitar, I was a little bit disappointed to find out that there are no SuperNatural guitars in the acoustic release that they've done for 1.5. There were some really neat articulations in there that I'd like them to see come out with in the next update, if they do so. Moving on to bass sounds. In acoustic bass, we've got only Zencore sounds in acoustic bass. However, in electric bass, we do have SuperNatural sounds. And we do have those SuperNatural bass sounds, the electric bass sounds, and there are some neat articulations in there. Obviously, so far, a harp is not a string or a brass sound, and a electric bass is not really strings or brass either. So moving on, we've got the strings. We've got the ensemble strings. That's in line with Roland's announcement. And we've got the solo strings. But on all of these sounds that say solo, it's a little bit of a misnomer because you can, in fact, play chords. So there's another SuperNatural acoustic secret. The solo sounds are not necessarily monophonic. They are polyphonic, but some interesting things happen in response to your playing when using these sounds polyphonically or monophonically, the SuperNatural strings and the brass that we'll get to here as well. And the same thing in the ensemble brass. I don't have any SuperNatural. Synth brass, of course. You know, we've already got a great synthesizer section. We don't need SuperNatural. And in the brass section, we do have these things like trumpets and trombones and stuff like that that are SuperNatural. Quite a few of them. And every one of these will have different articulations available to them. In particular, the trumpet, again, even though it says solo, that doesn't mean that it's just monophonic. You can... Definitely, you can play polyphonically in the solo sounds. Again, that's one of the little secrets we're giving up here that Roland did not really announce. Moving on to the wind instruments. They might have come up with a group called Reed, if you ask me, because we've got a section called Wind, and the very first thing in there is sax. And it's a alto sax, and it's a great solo sax. You'll see some of the articulations that are in here. Just a teaser. Not good playing. That's just a teaser of some of the things that are in here that are different than how you'd have this sort of typical... That's a PCM-based sound. This is a SuperNatural sound, and there's a lot going on here. Ordinarily, you wouldn't play chords with a alto sax solo sound. But if you're doing brass sections, you can do that. And at the same time, you get these really lovely articulations when you're playing monophonically. We'll go into that more in a later video. Moving on, well, we're at least in a true wind instrument category here. We've got piccolos and flutes. Obviously, those are not strings or brass. Then something they call wind. In the wind section, there's a wind group. And interestingly, these are also reed instruments. We've got an oboe, a clarinet, Uilleann pipes, and bagpipes. Definitely, those are not strings or brass, okay? And in every one of these categories, there are some interesting articulations that would go along with these that respond to the way you play and make these much more interesting and much more realistic sounding than a simple synthesizer version or a PCM-based sample version of those sounds. I was very surprised to find, I'm moving on to choirs here, that there is a choir section that has SuperNatural synth sounds in it. I expected all of these to be... Did I say SuperNatural synth? SuperNatural acoustic. SuperNatural choirs, and I haven't gotten into all the articulations yet, but I have discovered some things that I'll be showing you in future videos that if you're going for very authentic sounding choirs, or I should say more authentic than what you would typically get out of a workstation keyboard like this, there's a lot in here that will help make that happen. But I don't want to do a 45-minute long video like I first started to do when I did this. There are no SuperNatural synths, there are no pads, there are no FX, there are no drums. Your user sounds, of course, if there are any SuperNatural acoustic sounds there, those would be any of those that you created your own from the SuperNatural engines that are inside there. So, not a lot of playing in this video. I know that for some of you that makes this not so much fun, but there's more to SuperNatural than just some extra brass and string sounds in Roland Fantom Operating System 1.5, and that's pretty much the point of this video. Get in there if you have a Fantom and explore these things on your own, because there's a lot of meat in here, a lot of capability to really expand and bring out real expressive capabilities when doing acoustic sounds with this particular instrument, and we'll explore those more in later videos. But SuperNatural synth, SuperNatural acoustic, secret number one, it's not just strings and brass. It's so much more than that, and we'll get into those in future videos. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.